In September 2015, Sarah and Evan Mitchell, ages 28 and 30, vanished without a trace while hiking in Crater Lake National Park, Oregon. For nearly 7 years, everyone believed the newlywed couple had fallen victim to a tragic hiking accident in the treacherous terrain surrounding the nation's deepest lake. But in May 2022, something impossible happened. Evan Mitchell was found alive, stumbling along a rural highway 40 miles from where he disappeared. What he told investigators about those 7 missing years shocked even the most experienced FBI agents and revealed a nightmare of captivity hidden beneath the volcanic landscape. You'll find out exactly what happened in this video. Before we begin, I need to mention that while this case is based on real investigative procedures and forensic techniques, some names and specific details have been changed to protect the privacy of those involved. Not all images shown are from the actual investigation. This transparency is important as we explore one of the most disturbing cases in Pacific Northwest history. Before diving into the story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you don't miss our latest cases. We cover true crime stories that not only intrigue, but also teach valuable lessons about safety and awareness in our modern world. September 18, 2015, began like any other early autumn day in southern Oregon. Crater Lake National Park, located in the Cascade Mountains, was experiencing the transition from summer to fall, with temperatures hovering around 52 degrees Fahrenheit at dawn, slightly cooler than the seasonal average. The park, famous for its stunning sapphire blue caldera lake, formed nearly 7,700 years ago, attracts over 700,000 visitors annually. On this particular Friday, the park rangers expected moderate visitor traffic as families squeezed in last-minute vacations before the school year fully resumed. Sarah Chen Mitchell, 28, and Evan Mitchell, 30, had been married for exactly 4 months. Sarah worked as a pediatric nurse at Providence Portland Medical Center, while Evan was a software engineer for a tech startup in Beaverton. Friends described them as adventurous but cautious, the kind of couple who researched trails thoroughly and always carried proper equipment. They had planned this 3-day camping trip to celebrate their delayed honeymoon, having postponed their original plans due to work commitments. Sarah's Instagram post from the night before showed the couple's excitement, a photo of their packed Honda CR-V with the caption, "Finally, Crater Lake Adventure starts tomorrow. Can't wait to see that famous blue water." That Friday morning, security cameras at the park's Any Creek entrance captured the Mitchells' vehicle entering at 8:42 a.m. The timestamp showed Sarah driving, with Evan visible in the passenger seat, reviewing what appeared to be a trail map. They wore matching gray fleece jackets and carried a navy blue North Face backpack containing, according to their submitted day hike plan, water bottles, energy bars, a first aid kit, a camera, and Sarah's phone. Evan had left his phone at their campsite, mentioning to another camper that he wanted to disconnect completely. They informed the ranger station they planned to hike the Plaquenil Falls Trail, a relatively easy 2-mile round-trip hike known for its waterfall views and wildflower meadows. A family from Seattle reported seeing the Mitchells at approximately 9:15 a.m. near the trailhead, adjusting their backpack and appearing in good spirits. A solo hiker passed them around 10:30 a.m. on the trail, exchanging friendly greetings. The hiker later told investigators that both Sarah and Evan seemed healthy, energetic, and were taking photographs of the surrounding forest. This was the last confirmed sighting of the couple. By 4:30 p.m., when the Mitchells had not returned to the designated trailhead parking area, park regulations did not yet classify them as overdue. The trail allowed for leisurely pace and extended photography stops. However, by 7:40 p.m., as darkness descended over the park and their vehicle remained untouched in the parking area, another camper noticed the situation and reported it to park rangers. Attempts to contact Sarah's phone went directly to voicemail. The phone's GPS signal, which might have provided location data, was either turned off or had lost battery power. At 8:15 p.m., the park's emergency protocols were officially activated. Sarah's sister, Emily Chen, who had been expecting an evening check-in call, contacted Oregon State Police after unable to reach either Sarah or Evan. By 9:30 p.m., the Crater Lake Search and Rescue Coordinator had been notified, and preliminary search teams were being assembled for first light deployment. That same night, September 18th, at 10:45 p.m., the Crater Lake Search and Rescue Team was placed on standby, with operations scheduled to begin at dawn. Commander James Holbrook, a 22-year SAR veteran, immediately established an incident command system structure. the standardized emergency management protocol used across federal agencies. The last known point was designated as the Blakeney Falls trailhead, where the Mitchells' vehicle remained locked and undisturbed. Initial assessment classified this as a code yellow situation. Missing persons with unknown circumstances, no distress signals, and deteriorating weather conditions forecasted. At 6 a.m. on September 19th, the first search teams deployed. The initial response included 24 SAR personnel, 2 K9 tracking units, and a National Park Service helicopter equipped with infrared detection technology. The search perimeter was established as a 3-mile radius from the last known point, covering approximately 28 square miles of mixed terrain, including dense coniferous forest, volcanic rock formations, and steep ravines. The Blakeney Falls Trail itself wound through old-growth forest with minimal visibility beyond 50 feet in most sections. K9 units picked up scent trails along the designated hiking path, but lost the trail approximately 1.4 miles from the trailhead, near a junction where several unofficial side paths diverged into heavier brush. This concerned investigators, as experienced hikers like the Mitchells would typically stay on marked trails. Teams thoroughly searched these divergent paths, looking for any signs of deviation: broken branches, disturbed soil, fabric snags, or footprints. Nothing was found. Search and rescue interviewed all 17 hikers and campers who had been in the Blakeney Falls area that day. Each person was questioned about what they observed, what time they were on the trail, and whether they noticed anything unusual. The Seattle family confirmed seeing the Mitchells at the trailhead in good spirits. The solo hiker provided the 10:30 a.m. sighting. No one reported hearing calls for help, seeing any signs of distress, or noticing the couple leaving the established trail system. One elderly couple mentioned hearing what might have been an ATV engine in the distance around midday. But this wasn't unusual, as park maintenance sometimes used such vehicles, though typically not on that particular trail. Over the next 12 days, SAR expanded the search radius to nearly 15 miles, eventually covering over 700 square miles of terrain. The operation grew to include resources from Jackson County Search and Rescue, Douglas County SAR, and specialized technical rescue teams from Portland. A systematic grid search pattern was implemented, dividing the area into cells measuring 500 meters square. Each cell was assigned to a team responsible for thorough ground coverage. Searchers used GPS units to track their exact paths, ensuring no area was missed. The helicopter conducted aerial infrared surveys during both day and night, attempting to detect body heat signatures that might indicate injured or hypothermic victims. Drones equipped with high-resolution cameras photographed thousands of acres, with images later analyzed for any anomalies: a splash of color from clothing, disturbed vegetation, or unusual ground patterns. Technical climbing teams rappelled into ravines and cliff areas where an accidental fall might have occurred. Each location yielded nothing. On September 23rd, dive teams were requested to search Blakeney Creek and several smaller water features in the area, despite the creek's shallow depth, making drowning highly unlikely. Divers used side-scan sonar to detect any submerged objects or bodies. The water searches continued for 3 days, covering every accessible water feature within a 5-mile radius of the trail. Again, nothing connected to the Mitchells was discovered. The search also included specialist teams examining the possibility of the couple becoming lost and succumbing to exposure. However, weather records showed temperatures had remained mild, lows of 45 degrees Fahrenheit at night, hardly cold enough to cause life-threatening hypothermia for properly dressed individuals. There had been no rainfall during the relevant period, eliminating flash flood scenarios. What frustrated investigators most was the complete absence of evidence. In typical missing person cases involving hiking accidents, searchers find something: a dropped water bottle, a piece of torn clothing caught on branches, shoe prints veering off trail, disturbed earth from a fall or slide, or at minimum, scent trails extending in a traceable direction. In wilderness areas, it's nearly impossible for human beings to move without leaving some trace. Yet the Mitchells seemed to have simply evaporated. Commander Holbrook later stated in his incident report, "In my 22 years coordinating search operations, I have never encountered a case where 2 adults disappeared so completely from a well-traveled trail system with absolutely zero physical evidence. The lack of any trace, no personal items, no biological evidence, no trail deviation markers, suggested something beyond a typical hiking accident. The search became increasingly paradoxical. The terrain, while containing some dangerous areas, was not so treacherous that two healthy adults would vanish without leaving evidence. The weather had been favorable. The trail was clearly marked. The Mitchells were experienced hikers who had informed others of their route. Park rangers noted that if the couple had fallen into a ravine or suffered some accident, the extensive ground coverage should have located them. If they had become lost and disoriented, they would have eventually encountered one of several park roads or been detected by aerial infrared. If they had been attacked by wildlife, an extraordinarily rare event, there would be signs of struggle and biological evidence. On September 30th, the 12th day of active searching, Commander Holbrook was forced to make the difficult decision to conclude large-scale field operations. The search had cost over $450,000 in resources, deployed more than 200 personnel, and covered an unprecedented area. Statistical probability models showed that if the Mitchells were in the searched area and had succumbed to accident or exposure, they would have been found. The case officially transitioned from active rescue to recovery status, then to a missing persons investigation. The Mitchells' families held a press conference on October 5th, pleading for any information. Sarah's father, Robert Chen, stood before cameras with tears streaming down his face, holding up wedding photos of the couple. Evan's mother, Patricia Mitchell, described her son as responsible and careful, someone who would never take unnecessary risks. A reward fund of $50,000 was established for information leading to their discovery. The missing persons file was assigned case number MP 2015-1847 and moved to the cold case division. Park rangers continued passive monitoring, and the case remained open with periodic reviews. But as weeks turned into months, and months turned into years, the likelihood of finding Sarah and Evan Mitchell alive diminished to virtually zero. Their families held memorial services without bodies. The media coverage faded. The case joined the unfortunate ranks of unexplained disappearances in American wilderness areas. Until it didn't. Nearly 7 years after the case went cold, that silence was suddenly and shockingly broken. The date was May 7th, 2022, a Saturday morning when most of southern Oregon was just beginning to wake up. At 6:18 a.m., a delivery truck driver named Marcus Webb was traveling along Highway 230, a rural two-lane road approximately 40 miles northeast of Crater Lake National Park. The road wound through sparsely populated forest land, passing few structures other than occasional logging roads and abandoned service stations. As Webb rounded a gradual curve, his headlights caught something unusual on the shoulder, what appeared to be a person stumbling along the roadside. Webb immediately pulled over and approached cautiously. What he found shocked him enough that his hands trembled as he dialed 911. A man, appearing to be in his late 30s or early 40s, was walking barefoot on the gravel shoulder. He wore filthy, torn clothing that looked like it might have once been a grey t-shirt and dark pants. Though they were so degraded, it was difficult to tell. The man's appearance was startling. He was extremely thin, his skin pale and covered with visible bruises and scars, his hair long and matted, and his beard grown wild and unkempt. "I need emergency services immediately," Webb reported to the 911 dispatcher. "I've got a man on Highway 230, mile marker 47. He's in bad shape. Looks like he's been lost for days, maybe weeks. He can barely walk. He's conscious, but seems confused." When Webb approached the man and asked if he needed help, the response was barely coherent. The man's voice was hoarse, his speech halting and weak. He tried to speak but seemed unable to form complete sentences. He kept repeating two syllables that sounded like Evan and pointing at himself. When Webb offered water from his truck, the man drank desperately, as if he hadn't had fluids in days. Rapid response paramedics arrived at 6:35 a.m., followed shortly by Oregon State Police. The initial medical assessment was grave. The man showed severe dehydration with sunken eyes and extremely dry mucous membranes. His pulse was weak and irregular at 52 beats per minute. His blood pressure was dangerously low at 90/55. His body temperature registered at 95.8 degrees Fahrenheit, indicating mild hypothermia, despite the morning temperature being relatively mild. He appeared disoriented, responding to questions with confusion and apparent difficulty processing information. The man was immediately transported to Sky Lakes Medical Center in Klamath Falls, 35 miles south. During the ambulance ride, he drifted in and out of clear consciousness. When lucid, he repeated a few scattered words: Evan, Bunker, Sarah, and 7 years. Paramedics noted these words carefully, though they initially assumed the man might be experiencing delusions or mental health crisis. At the hospital emergency room, medical personnel began emergency stabilization procedures: IV fluids, warming blankets, vital sign monitoring, and preliminary examinations. A physician's assistant named Dr. Lisa Kowalski conducted the intake assessment. She documented extensive physical trauma, numerous scars at various stages of healing, significant muscle atrophy, signs of chronic malnutrition, and what appeared to be restraint marks on both wrists and ankles, deep indentations in the skin, suggesting prolonged binding. It was during the identification process that the situation took an extraordinary turn. When asked his name, the man managed to say more clearly, Evan Mitchell. A nurse named Jennifer Larson, who had worked at the hospital for 15 years, felt a shock of recognition at the name. She remembered the 2015 missing persons case. It had been significant regional news, and posters of the missing couple had remained on community bulletin boards for years. Wait, Larson said to Dr. Kowalski. Evan Mitchell? There was a missing persons case, a couple from Portland who disappeared at Crater Lake, around 2015. A quick search of missing persons databases confirmed it. Evan Mitchell, reported missing September 18, 2015, from Crater Lake National Park. Age at disappearance, 30. The database contained photographs from 2015 showing a healthy, smiling man with short brown hair and clean-shaven face. But could this severely traumatized, emaciated man truly be the same person? The physical differences were stark enough to raise doubts. Hospital staff pulled up the missing persons file photos on a computer and compared them carefully to the patient. Despite the dramatic physical changes, the weight loss, the long hair and beard, the aged appearance, certain features remained consistent. The shape of the eyes, a distinctive small scar on the left eyebrow, the ear structure and dental alignment visible when the patient briefly opened his mouth. The Oregon State Police were immediately notified of the potential identification. At 10:30 a.m., Detective Sarah Brennan from the OSP Criminal Investigation Division arrived at the hospital. She brought with her the complete missing persons file on Evan and Sarah Mitchell. Brennan took preliminary photographs of the patient and noted distinctive physical markers, including a birthmark on the man's right shoulder that matched medical records from Evan Mitchell's pre-disappearance physician files. To confirm identity beyond doubt, DNA samples were collected and sent to the Oregon State Police Forensic Services Division for expedited analysis. The samples would be compared against DNA from Evan Mitchell's stored personal items that his family had provided in Day 2015, a hairbrush and clothing items. 48 hours later, on May 9th, the DNA results came back with a perfect match. The man found on Highway 230 was definitively Evan Mitchell. The probability of the match being coincidental was calculated at less than 1 in 7.9 trillion. The case status was immediately changed from cold missing persons to active criminal investigation. If Evan Mitchell had been held against his will for nearly 7 years, this represented one of the longest known captivity cases in Oregon history. The FBI was notified, given the case now potentially involved kidnapping across jurisdictions and the extended duration suggesting organized criminal activity. The family was notified on May 10th. Patricia Mitchell, Evan's mother, collapsed upon hearing the news. Her son, whom she had mourned and memorialized, was alive. But where was Sarah? That question, and what had happened during those 7 missing years, now became the focus of one of the most intensive investigations in Pacific Northwest history. Once Evan Mitchell's identity was confirmed, a comprehensive medical and psychological evaluation team was assembled. The goal was twofold: provide immediate treatment for his serious health issues and gather forensic medical evidence that might shed light on what had occurred during his captivity. Dr. Raymond Foster, a specialist in trauma medicine, led the medical assessment team. Dr. Patricia Vance, a clinical psychologist with expertise in captivity-related trauma, conducted the psychological evaluation. The medical documentation revealed shocking physical deterioration. Evan Mitchell's pre-disappearance weight, according to his 2015 medical records, was 178 pounds at a height of 5 feet 11 inches, a normal, healthy BMI of 24.8. Upon admission to Sky Lakes Medical Center in May 2022, he weighed only 116 pounds, representing a loss of 62 pounds, or approximately 35% of his original body weight. His BMI had dropped to 16.2, well below the threshold of 18.5 that defines underweight status, and approaching the severe malnutrition category. Physical examination revealed extreme loss of subcutaneous fat, the layer of fat that normally sits between skin and muscle. Evan's ribs, clavicle, and hip bones were prominently visible through his skin. His face appeared gaunt, with deeply sunken cheeks and prominent cheekbones. Blood tests showed severe deficiencies in multiple vitamins and minerals. Vitamin D levels measured at 12 nanograms per milliliter, far below the minimum healthy level of 30 nanograms per milliliter, indicating prolonged absence of sun exposure. Vitamin B12 levels were critically low at 150 picograms per milliliter, normal range 200 to 900, suggesting inadequate protein and nutrient intake over an extended period. Iron deficiency anemia was evident, with hemoglobin at 10.2 grams per deciliter, normal range for men 13.5 to 17.5, contributing to his extreme fatigue and weakness. X-rays and CT scans revealed a catalog of injuries sustained at different times throughout the captivity period. This temporal stratification of injuries became crucial forensic evidence, allowing investigators to understand the progression of trauma over time. Old injuries, those that had healed years ago, included a fractured left rib that forensic radiologists estimated had occurred 4 to 6 years prior, based on the extent of bone remodeling and calcification. The fracture pattern suggested blunt force trauma rather than a fall. A hairline fracture of the right ulna, forearm bone, showed healing characteristics consistent with an injury 3 to 4 years old. Both injuries had healed without proper medical treatment, resulting in slight misalignment that caused chronic pain. Mid-range injuries included extensive scarring on both wrists and ankles. Dermatological analysis revealed these were restraint marks, deep grooves in the skin caused by repeated binding with narrow, rough material, likely rope or thin metal cables. The scarring pattern showed continuous trauma over approximately 18 to 24 months, suggesting a period when Evan was regularly restrained. Similar marks on his upper arms indicated he had been bound in multiple positions. Recent injuries were more immediately visible. Fresh bruising across his lower back and thighs showed trauma within the past 2 to 3 weeks. Ligature marks on his wrists appeared to be only days old. A partially healed laceration on his left forearm, approximately 3 weeks old, showed signs of infection that was being treated with IV antibiotics. Perhaps most telling was the severe muscle atrophy. Measurements showed Evan's thigh muscle mass had decreased by approximately 42% compared to normal values for his height and frame. His arms showed similar wasting. This degree of atrophy indicated not just malnutrition, but prolonged immobilization, months or years of being unable to engage in normal physical movement. Physical therapy assessments found that Evan had difficulty walking more than 50 feet without rest and could not climb stairs without assistance. Beyond the injuries and malnutrition, Evan's body told the story of his captivity environment. His profound vitamin D deficiency, combined with extremely pale skin that showed virtually no tan or sun damage, indicated he had spent years in an environment with little to no natural light. Ophthalmological examination revealed his pupils had difficulty adjusting to normal light levels, a condition that develops when eyes adapt to prolonged darkness. When examination lights were turned on, Evan instinctively closed his eyes and turned away, a reflexive response that persisted throughout his hospital stay. His skin showed other telling signs. Fungal infections between his toes and in skin folds suggested prolonged exposure to damp conditions without proper hygiene facilities. Analysis of dirt and debris embedded under his fingernails and in his skin revealed dark volcanic soil mixed with rust particles and concrete dust. These materials would later become crucial forensic evidence. Dental examination revealed extensive decay and gum disease, indicating years without proper oral hygiene. 3 teeth showed advanced cavities that had progressed to the point of causing root infections. His gums were inflamed and bleeding, consistent with severe gingivitis. The dentist estimated these conditions had developed over at least 4 to 5 years of neglect. Dr. Patricia Vance's psychological assessment revealed profound trauma responses, consistent with prolonged captivity under conditions of extreme control and isolation. From the moment Evan regained fuller consciousness in the hospital, his behavior demonstrated clear adaptation to captivity conditions. When medical staff entered his room, he would immediately become still and compliant, waiting for instructions rather than asking questions or expressing preferences. This exaggerated compliance response is common in long-term captivity victims who have learned that any show of independence results in punishment. Evan exhibited extreme startle responses to sudden sounds. When a nurse accidentally dropped a metal tray in the hallway, Evan immediately curled into a fetal position on the hospital bed, arms protecting his head. This protective posture persisted for several minutes, even after staff reassured him. Similar reactions occurred with door closings, raised voices, or unexpected movements in his peripheral vision. Most striking was his relationship with light and space. Evan kept his hospital room lights off, requesting only a small bedside lamp. When staff insisted on brighter lighting for medical procedures, he would squint painfully and keep his eyes mostly closed. He positioned himself in corners of the room rather than in open spaces, and he constantly monitored the location of the door, never sitting with his back to it. His eating behavior was equally revealing. When presented with hospital meals, Evan would eat extremely rapidly, barely chewing, as if the food might be taken away, hoarded packaged items like crackers and juice boxes, hiding them under his pillow or in the bedside table. When staff gently explained the food was unlimited, he appeared not to believe them, continuing the hoarding behavior. Neuropsychological testing revealed selective cognitive impacts. Evan's long-term memory remained largely intact. He could recall events from before his disappearance, recognized photographs of family members, and could describe his previous life with reasonable accuracy. However, his short-term memory and executive function showed impairment. He struggled to remember events from earlier the same day, had difficulty following multi-step instructions, and showed reduced ability to plan or organize tasks. Temporal disorientation was severe, and the crepitally was potentially filtermarkable. He reported them facility. He convent be a main scale the fee time. He checked the long-term memory revealed, and whether than they found in search as attacked. Even as a term of people thinks upon, he stole them to find this he revealed them was severe. Temporal disorientation was severe. He had mentionedly made the few was made full impact by the time. His fight, he had not tented to revealed an old of the page. He told remember, and crypting in his motus with him to bead. Even remained long-term memory revealed, has been createdly loved by me with made fast for the time. However, his truth events from gather, he did not find them anything that still remember of this cattles and family. Temporal disorientation was severe. He positly made them into the earler with made fast. Even his fourth, he started for this places with individual. To struggle to remember events from earlier the disorientation was severe. Evan could not accurately estimate the passage of time and had difficulty understanding that nearly 7 years had elapsed. When told the current year was 2022, he became distressed, saying, "That's not possible. It can't be 2022. This confusion persisted for several days as his mind grappled with the lost time. Spatial cognition appeared altered. Evan had difficulty estimating distances and sizes of rooms, consistently underestimating them. When asked to describe the size of his hospital room, he said it was huge, like a warehouse, though it was a standard 12 by 14-foot patient room. This suggests his perception had calibrated to a much smaller living space over time. Dr. Vance identified several classic trauma responses that provided insights into Evan's captivity conditions. His hypervigilance, the constant scanning for threats, the monitoring of the door, the startle responses, indicated he had lived under continuous fear of harm. The compliance response suggested a captivity situation where defiance resulted in punishment, training him to be passive and wait for direction. His hoarding behavior indicated prolonged food scarcity, where meals were unpredictable or insufficient. The speed of eating suggested a learned behavior from situations where eating time was limited or food could be taken away. His difficulty with decision-making, what to eat, what to wear, when to sleep, showed the effects of prolonged loss of autonomy, where all decisions had been made by his captor. Most concerning were signs of what psychologists call learned helplessness, a psychological state where prolonged inability to escape trauma leads to a belief that escape is impossible, even when opportunities arise. Evan repeatedly expressed that there was no way out and no one would find me, statements suggesting he had internalized his captivity as permanent and inescapable. The combined medical and psychological evidence painted a clear picture of prolonged captivity under specific conditions. Dr. Foster and Dr. Vance collaborated with the FBI's Behavioral Analysis Unit to develop a forensic profile of the captivity environment based on Evan's physical and psychological state. Using standardized assessment tools developed from previous captivity cases, evaluators scored Evan's case across 3 primary indicators. Duration indicator, maximum score. The physical evidence of years-long vitamin deficiencies, progressive injuries, and profound psychological adaptation all confirmed captivity lasting multiple years, in this case, nearly 7. Control severity indicator, near maximum score. The evidence of physical restraint, controlled feeding, environmental deprivation, lack of light, limited space, and psychological conditioning through punishment indicated extremely high levels of captor control. Sensory deprivation indicator, high score. The light sensitivity, skin pallor, vitamin D deficiency, and spatial perception alterations all pointed to prolonged confinement in an environment with minimal sensory input, dark, quiet, and monotonous. When compared to known long-term captivity cases, including the 18-year captivity of J.C. Dugard, the 24-year captivity of Elizabeth Fritzer, and the 10-year captivity of Amanda Berry and Gina DeJesus in Cleveland, Evan's case scored among the most severe in terms of physical deprivation and environmental restriction. Based purely on the forensic medical evidence, investigators could reconstruct key characteristics of Evan's captivity environment even before interviewing him. Confinement space. Small, likely unable to fully stand or move more than a few steps. Evidence. Severe muscle atrophy in specific muscle groups used for standing and walking. Spatial perception alterations, positioning behaviors showing adaptation to cramped spaces. Lighting. Minimal to none. Evidence. Profound vitamin D deficiency, light sensitivity, pupillary adaptation, lack of circadian rhythm regulation evident in sleep pattern disruption. Temperature. Cool but not freezing, likely consistent year-round. Evidence. No frostbite or severe cold exposure damage, but fungal infections suggesting dampness. Ventilation. Poor but sufficient. Evidence. No carbon monoxide poisoning or severe respiratory damage, but chronic, minor respiratory irritation. Hygiene facilities. Minimal or primitive. Evidence. Skin infections, dental decay, embedded dirt suggesting limited water access for cleaning. Food. Inadequate but sufficient for survival. Evidence. Severe malnutrition but not starvation, specific vitamin deficiencies suggesting limited food variety, likely non-perishable items. Physical restraint. Regular during certain periods. Evidence. Restraint scarring showing both old and recent injuries, suggesting restraint was used variably throughout captivity. Forensic medical analysis allowed investigators to divide the captivity into approximate phases based on when different types of injuries occurred. Initial phase, first 6 to 12 months. Old fractures and initial major injuries suggesting violent capture or early escape attempts that were met with physical force. Middle phase, years 2 to 5. Development of restraint scarring, suggesting Evan was regularly bound during this period. This may correspond to a period of attempted resistance or escape behavior that the captor suppressed through physical restraint. Late middle phase, years 5, 6. Fewer new injuries, suggesting either adaptation and compliance or reduced physical resistance capability due to weakness. Final phase, last 6 to 12 months. Recent malnutrition acceleration, newer injuries, suggesting changing circumstances, possibly captor absence, deteriorating conditions, or preparation for release or escape. This medical timeline would prove remarkably accurate when later compared to Evan's testimony and physical evidence from the captivity site. The comprehensive medical and psychological profile provided investigators with critical information before Evan was even able to give a full statement. It told them they were looking for a concealed, underground, or heavily enclosed structure with minimal light. They were looking for someone with knowledge of long-term human captivity and control techniques. And most urgently, they were looking for any signs of Sarah Mitchell, who had been absent from Evan's initial disoriented statements and whose fate remained unknown. As Evan Mitchell's physical condition stabilized over the following weeks, FBI Special Agent Daniel Torres, a specialist in kidnapping and captivity cases, began the delicate process of gathering testimony. The challenge was significant. Evan's memory was fragmented, his emotional state fragile, and the trauma made linear storytelling nearly impossible. Rather than pushing for a complete narrative, Agent Torres used a technique called cognitive interview methodology, allowing Evan to share sensory memories, fragments, and impressions that could be assembled into evidence. When asked to describe where he had been held, Evan initially struggled with concrete details. However, sensory memories proved more accessible. The ceiling was very low, he recalled during one session. I couldn't stand up, straight, maybe 5.5 feet tall at most. I had to hunch over or crawl. His hands gestured the dimensions unconsciously, a space perhaps 10 to 12 feet in length and 8 feet wide. The surfaces, he remembered, felt cold and slightly rough. Metal walls, I think. When I touched them, they were cold, always cold. They made this sound, he demonstrated by knocking on the hospital bed's metal frame. A dull, resonant thunk, characteristic of thin metal panels or sheets. And there was rust, orange-brown rust that would flake off if you scraped it. Temperature was another consistent sensory memory. Cold, always cold, but not freezing, like a basement in winter. Maybe 50 degrees, 55? I don't know. I was always cold, but I didn't get frostbite. This detail was significant. It suggested underground or heavily insulated location where outside temperature variations were minimal. Evan also remembered vibrations. Sometimes I could feel rumbling, like something heavy moving above.
Or maybe far away. It wasn't constant, maybe once or twice a day, sometimes not for days. But when it happened, I could feel it through the floor. This suggested either proximity to a road where large vehicles passed, or possibly heavy equipment being operated nearby. One of the most disturbing aspects of Evan's testimony was his complete loss of time perception. I don't know when I slept or when I was awake, he said, his voice shaking. There was no light, no windows, no way to tell if it was day or night, no way to know if an hour had passed or a day. Time just stopped. Food appeared irregularly, he explained. A slot would open. I could hear metal scraping, and a container would be pushed through. Sometimes it felt like it had been forever since the last one. Sometimes it felt like it came right away. I had no idea. The food itself was limited. Canned things mostly. Beans, vegetables. Sometimes crackers or bread, but it was often moldy. Water in plastic bottles. This irregular feeding schedule, combined with the complete absence of circadian cues, created the temporal disorientation documented in his psychological assessment. I tried to count. I tried to keep track of days by counting food deliveries, but I would fall asleep and lose count, or I'd get confused about whether I'd already counted. After a while, I stopped trying. One of the most critical pieces of Evan's testimony concerned Sarah. His memories of the initial abduction were fragmented and confused, but one thing was clear. They had been together at first, then separated. We were hiking, Evan said,
his eyes distant. I remember Sarah was taking photos of wildflowers. Then, I don't remember clearly, someone was there. Something happened fast. There was pain. I think I was hit on the head. Everything went black. When he regained consciousness, he was already in confinement. Sarah was there, in the same space. I could see her. We tried to talk, tried to figure out what happened, where we were. But we couldn't get out. The door was metal, solid. No handle on our side. Then came the separation. I don't know how long we were together. Days, a week, it's all blurred. But then he came, the person who took us, and he took Sarah out. She was screaming, fighting. I tried to stop him, but I was tied up. He was strong. Evan's voice broke. She was gone. I could hear her though, through the wall. I could hear her crying, calling for me. I would call back. We did that for, I don't know how long, weeks, months. Then, one day, the sound stopped. I called for her, over and over. No answer, just silence. His face contorted with pain. I knew. Somehow I knew she was gone. Not just taken away, gone. Dead. This testimony aligned with the investigators' worst fears and would prove critical in understanding the crime's timeline and structure. Evan had limited direct interaction with his captor, but the encounters he remembered provided valuable details. I rarely saw him.
Clearly, Evan explained. The space where I was kept was always dark.
When he opened the door, there was light behind him, so he was just a silhouette. Tall, big, strong. Sound memories were more specific. Heavy footsteps. Not just heavy like a big person, but heavy boots, steel-toed maybe. They made a distinctive sound on metal floors. Clank, clank, clank. Evan demonstrated the rhythm with his hands. And doors. Heavy metal doors closing. There was this sound. A metallic clang followed by a scraping, like bolts being slid into place. Other sounds occasionally penetrated his confinement. Dragging sounds. Heavy things being pulled across floors above me. Tools. I heard drilling sometimes, or hammering. An engine starting up occasionally, far away. These auditory memories suggested the captor was maintaining or building something, and that the captivity site was part of a larger structure or complex. The captor rarely spoke, according to Evan. He gave short commands. Don't move. Turn around. Face the wall. His voice was low, gruff. He didn't want conversation. If I tried to talk, ask questions, beg, he ignored me. Or he would hit me. While Evan's testimony provided crucial directional information, the FBI team knew that memories of trauma are often unreliable and fragmented. Physical evidence would be necessary to locate the captivity site and build a prosecutable case. The forensic analysis began with materials collected from Evan's body upon his discovery. Forensic geologist Dr. Raymond Hartley analyzed soil samples taken from Evan's skin, embedded under his fingernails, and ground into his clothing. The soil composition was distinctive and telling. The samples contained high concentrations of volcanic material, specifically scoria, a dark, porous volcanic rock, Dr. Hartley reported to investigators. The color is reddish-brown to dark brown, which is characteristic of oxidized volcanic material. The grain size distribution shows particles, ranging from fine sand to small pebbles, with angular rather than rounded edges, indicating minimal water erosion. This type of soil is not uniformly distributed across Oregon. Dr. Hartley cross-referenced the composition with geological surveys. This particular scoria composition, with its specific mineral ratios of iron, magnesium, and silica, matches deposits found primarily in the Cascade Range volcanic fields, particularly in areas with geologically recent lava flows. More specifically, the analysis pointed to areas east and northeast of Crater Lake, where lava beds and volcanic rock formations dominate the landscape. The soil also contained trace elements that narrowed the range further. Presence of zeolite minerals, specifically clinoptilolite, indicates volcanic ash that has been altered by groundwater over time. Dr. Hartley explained. This occurs in specific geological zones where volcanic material has been in contact with silica-rich groundwater for extended periods. By mapping areas that matched all these geological characteristics, the search zone was narrowed to approximately 50 square kilometers northeast of Crater Lake National Park, including parts of the Newberry National Volcanic Monument area. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, a microbiologist specializing in environmental forensics, analyzed biological samples from Evan's skin and the fungal infections documented during medical examination. Her findings provided additional environmental clues. The fungal species identified include Cladosporium and Aspergillus strains that thrive in cool, damp, enclosed environments with poor air circulation. Dr. Rodriguez reported, "These are not surface-level species, but rather those that proliferate in underground or enclosed built structures." More significantly, bacterial analysis revealed specific endemic species. We identified Pseudomonas bacteria and actinomycetes species that are characteristic of volcanic soil environments with high mineral content. The strain profiles match those found in lava bed cave systems and underground structures in volcanic regions. The combination of fungi and bacteria created a biological fingerprint, a cool, damp, enclosed space in contact with volcanic soils, likely underground or heavily earth-sheltered, with poor ventilation but sufficient air exchange to prevent anaerobic conditions. This profile was consistent with structures like old bunkers, mine shafts in volcanic rock, or modified lava tubes. Hair samples provided a timeline of mineral exposure. Hair grows at approximately 1 centimeter per month and incorporates minerals from water consumed and environments inhabited. Dr. Patricia Morgan, a forensic chemist, analyzed segments of Evan's hair corresponding to different time periods. The mineral profile shows consistent exposure to water with elevated silica, calcium, and magnesium content, Dr. Morgan explained. This is characteristic of groundwater from shallow wells or springs in volcanic rock formations, not typical municipal water supplies. The consistency of the mineral profile throughout the hair length confirmed Evan had been in the same location or drinking from the same water source for years. Additionally, the hair contained trace elements of rust particulates and concrete dust embedded at regular intervals. These particles suggest regular contact with deteriorating metal surfaces and concrete or cement structures, Dr. Morgan noted. The distribution pattern indicates this was a continuous exposure, not a one-time event. By overlaying the geological, microbiological, and chemical data, investigators created a priority map. 3 distinct characteristics had to intersect. Volcanic scoria soil of the specific composition identified underground or enclosed environments, supporting the identified microbial profile. Groundwater sources with the documented mineral signature. The overlapping zone reduced the search area to approximately 20 to 30 square kilometers, focused on a region where old lava beds met forested areas, where historical maps indicated possible underground structures or natural lava tubes, and where shallow groundwater wells had been documented. The second tier of forensic analysis examined more specific trace evidence that could pinpoint exact locations within the narrowed zone. Dr. Sarah Whitmore, a forensic palynologist, examined pollen samples collected from Evan's clothing and hair. Despite being confined in a dark space, pollen had reached him through air circulation and transfer from his captor. The pollen profile includes 3 particularly distinctive species, Dr. Whitmore reported. First, mountain hemlock, Tsuga mertensiana, which grows at elevations above 5,000 feet in the Cascades. Second, Pinomat manzanita, Arctostaphylos nevadensis, which is common in volcanic soils at moderate elevations. Third, and most significant, subalpine fir, Abies lasiocarpa, which has a very specific elevation range of 5,500 to 7,000 feet in this region. The presence of all 3 species together indicated a specific elevation zone and habitat type. More importantly, the seasonal timing could be determined. These 3 species release pollen during a narrow window in early July, approximately July 5th to 20 in this region. The presence of fresh pollen suggests Evan had environmental contact, either through his captor bringing it in or during the period shortly before his escape, during this time frame. This suggested the captivity site was located at an elevation between 5,500 to 6,500 feet, in an area where all 3 plant species ranges overlapped. and that there had been recent contact with the outside environment. Forensic textile examiner Marcus Chen analyzed the degraded clothing Evan wore upon discovery, and fabric fibers embedded in his skin and hair from the blankets or materials in his confinement. The primary fabric is a polyester cotton blend with a coarse utilitarian weave pattern, Chen reported. The dye, composition and manufacturing characteristics match military surplus blankets produced between 1995 and 2005. These were common surplus items sold through military supply stores. Additional fibers were even more revealing. Canvas fibers with a waterproof coating match material used in field equipment or industrial tarps. The degradation pattern indicates age. These materials are at least 15 to 20 years old. And significantly, synthetic rope fibers, nylon construction, show UV degradation on one side but not the other, indicating long-term outdoor exposure followed by indoor storage. These materials suggested a captor who had access to military surplus supplies, maintained equipment for outdoor use, and had prepared for long-term captivity with durable, utilitarian materials rather than improvised ones. This indicated premeditation and preparation. The rust particles embedded throughout Evan's environment provided temporal clues. Metallurgist Dr. Thomas Bradford analyzed rust, composition, and oxidation patterns. The rust comes from low-carbon steel, likely structural steel from the mid-20th century, based on composition and manufacturing indicators, Dr. Bradford explained. The oxidation pattern shows approximately 30 to 40 years of weathering, with accelerated corrosion in the last 10 to 15 years, likely due to increased moisture exposure. The steel's composition was particularly telling. This type of steel was commonly used in military construction projects in the 1940s through 1960s, particularly for underground bunkers, storage facilities, and other defense installations. Cross-referencing with historical records, investigators found that numerous small military installations and training facilities had been built in the Oregon Cascades during World War II and the Cold War, many of which were later abandoned. With Tier 2 forensic results, the investigation team could reduce their search zone dramatically. They now sought elevation, 5,500 to 6,500 feet, vegetation, overlap zone of mountain hemlock, Pinnamat manzanita, and subalpine fir, soil, specific volcanic scoria composition, structure, underground or heavily enclosed, likely military construction from 1940s to 1960s, materials, deteriorating steel and concrete, water, shallow well or groundwater with specific mineral signature. The priority area was reduced to approximately 5 to 7 square kilometers. Investigators created a ranked compatibility list, scoring each square kilometer zone by how many criteria it met. Armed with this narrowed search zone, the FBI deployed field investigation teams combining traditional search techniques with advanced technology. Historian and archivist Linda Mercer worked with the National Park Service and military records to identify abandoned structures in the target zone. Between 1942 and 1968, the U.S. Army conducted various training exercises in this region, Mercer discovered. They built numerous temporary structures including underground bunkers, storage facilities, and communication posts. Most were decommissioned in the 1970s and 80s. Original military construction maps, declassified and stored in National Archives facilities, showed 14 documented structure sites within the search zone. However, Mercer found something else. Many structures were not officially documented or were later omitted from maps during declassification. Local records mention additional auxiliary facilities that don't appear on the official maps. Interviews with longtime residents of nearby Chamalt and Crescent provided additional leads. One retired logger, 78-year-old Frank Morrison, remembered, "Back in the 60s, we'd come across old military stuff all the time out there. Concrete pads, metal doors sticking out of hillsides, bunker entrances. Nobody paid them much mind, just old army junk." Technology teams deployed ground-penetrating radar, GPR, systems across the priority zones. GPR sends electromagnetic pulses into the ground and measures the reflected signals, detecting variations in soil density that indicate voids, structures, or buried objects. Over 3 days, teams covered approximately 12 square kilometers. The GPR identified multiple anomalies, signals indicating potential underground voids or structures. Most were small or irregular, consistent with natural lava tubes or small animal dens. But 3 anomalies stood out. Target Alpha 3 showed a regular geometric void at approximately 2.5 meters depth, reported GPR technician Carlos Mendez. The signal indicated a rectangular space measuring roughly 3 meters by 5 meters, with what appeared to be metal reinforcement, creating strong reflections. Above it, at 1.2 meters depth, another smaller void measured approximately 4 meters by 4 meters. This 2-level structure was unusual and suspicious. Natural lava tubes don't form in regular geometric patterns, and the metal signatures suggested human construction. While GPR provided underground information, surface investigation teams looked for access points and activity signs. Special Agent Lisa Martinez, trained in tracking and wilderness investigation, led the surface search around Target Alpha 3. The area was heavily overgrown with ponderosa pine, manzanita shrubs, and forest understory, Martinez reported. But we found anomalies. First, a faint trail, barely visible, where vegetation was slightly less dense. Someone had traveled this route repeatedly over years, creating subtle but permanent changes to vegetation patterns. Following this trail, the team found tire impressions in a clearing approximately 400 meters from the GPR anomaly. The tracks were faded, weathered by seasons of rain and snow, but still recognizable, Martinez noted. ATV tracks, older pattern tread. The tracks appeared in multiple layers, indicating repeated use over years. Most significantly, they found the concealed entrance. At first, it appeared to be a natural rock outcrop covered in moss and small plants, Martinez described. But closer examination showed the rock was actually weathered concrete, carefully camouflaged. Vegetation had been deliberately planted to obscure the structure. Beneath this camouflage, they discovered a heavy metal hatch, approximately 1 meter square, secured with a rusted padlock. The hatch was set flush into a concrete frame embedded in the ground, the top of an underground structure. With all evidence pointing to Target Alpha 3, FBI Special Agent in charge, Robert Hammond, made the decision to proceed with excavation and entry. This site matches every forensic indicator we've developed, Hammond stated in his operational briefing. The elevation, vegetation, soil composition, structural characteristics, and access patterns all align with evidence from the victim. A tactical team was assembled, including FBI hostage rescue team members trained in confined space operations, forensic technicians prepared for evidence collection, and medical personnel on standby. A security perimeter was established around the site, and heavy equipment was brought in to carefully clear the area around the entrance. On May 28, 2022, exactly 21 days after Evan Mitchell's discovery, investigators prepared to enter what they believed was his prison. On the morning of May 28th, the excavation team began carefully clearing away the decades of camouflage and natural overgrowth surrounding the metal hatch. The process was methodical, each layer documented photographically before removal, any potential evidence carefully collected and catalogued. The heavily rusted padlock was cut away with bolt cutters, the metallic snap echoing through the surrounding forest. FBI tactical specialist Jake Reynolds and forensic investigator Dr. Michelle Torres were the first to descend. Reynolds carefully lifted the hatch. It weighed nearly 80 pounds and required significant force to move the corroded hinges. As the opening revealed itself, a wave of stale, cold air rushed out, carrying the unmistakable smell of decay, rust, and human habitation. "Deploying rope and lighting systems," Reynolds reported into his radio. Below the hatch, a narrow shaft descended approximately 1.8 meters, with rusted metal rungs forming a ladder built into one wall. The shaft's walls were concrete, heavily stained with water damage and mineral deposits from years of groundwater seepage. At the bottom of the shaft, the investigators found themselves in a small upper chamber, approximately 4 meters by 4 meters, with a ceiling height of roughly 2 meters. This space appeared to be an entry and storage area. Metal shelving units lined one wall, containing empty plastic containers, rusted tools, and collapsed cardboard boxes. The floor was concrete, cracked and uneven, with standing puddles of water in the low spots. But the focus of investigation was a second opening, a rectangular hatch built into the floor of this upper chamber, secured with heavy sliding bolts on the outside, This was the entrance to the primary detention space. "Opening secondary hatch," Reynolds announced. As the metal cover was pulled back, the opening revealed a second descent, this one dropping approximately 1.4 meters into complete darkness. The space below was Evan Mitchell's prison. The primary detention space measured approximately 3.5 meters in length, 2.8 meters in width, and critically, only 1.7 meters in height. An average adult male could not stand upright. The dimensions matched Evan's testimony precisely. The walls were corrugated metal panels, heavily rusted, exactly as he had described. The ceiling was supported by steel I-beams, their surfaces covered in flaking orange-brown rust that matched samples taken from Evan's skin and clothing. The floor was bare concrete with a slight slope toward one corner where a crude drainage hole had been chipped through. The smell was overwhelming. Years of human habitation without proper sanitation, combined with mold, rust, and dampness. Against one wall, forensic teams found the bed, a piece of plywood elevated on concrete blocks, covered with the degraded remains of military surplus blankets, matching the fibers analyzed earlier. The fabric was stained with bodily fluids, and portions had decomposed into fiber fragments. Restraint evidence was immediately apparent. Heavy metal rings had been bolted into the wall at two heights, one approximately 0.6 meters from the floor, another at 1.2 meters. Nylon ropes, weathered and stiff with age, were still attached to both rings. The rope ends showed wear patterns consistent with repeated binding and rubbing. When measured, the rope lengths would allow someone secured to them a range of movement of only 1.5 meters, enough to reach the plywood bed, but not the opposite wall or the exit hatch above. In one corner, investigators found remnants of food storage, dented cans with labels deteriorated beyond reading, empty plastic water bottles crushed flat, and a plastic bucket that appeared to have served as both food delivery container and waste receptacle. Most haunting were the marks on the walls, scratches in the metal panels made with fingernails or perhaps small rocks, attempts to mark time, or perhaps simply the mindless action of someone with nothing else to do. In one area, barely visible scratches formed words: Sarah, and 2016, and help. Blood evidence was also present. Forensic investigators identified multiple small bloodstains on the plywood bed and one larger stain on the floor near the restraint points. Presumptive field tests confirmed the presence of human blood. These samples would later be matched through DNA analysis to Evan Mitchell, providing irrefutable proof this was his place of captivity. The investigation expanded to the upper chamber, which served as the captor's functional base of operations. Unlike the lower detention space, this area showed signs of long-term occupation and routine activity. A makeshift living setup occupied one corner, a folding cot with a sleeping bag, a small battery-powered lantern, and plastic storage containers holding clothing items. The clothing was utilitarian: work pants, flannel shirts, heavy boots, all in large sizes, suggesting a person of substantial build. A kitchen area consisted of a portable camping stove, propane tanks, and boxes of non-perishable food items. The food selection was revealing: bulk quantities of canned beans, canned vegetables, rice in sealed bags, and large containers of water. Purchase receipts were still attached to some items, providing potential investigative leads. Most significant was a large plastic storage bin containing what investigators termed control materials: additional nylon rope, duct tape, padlocks, metal chains, and flex cuffs. These were tools of captivity, purchased and stored in quantity. Their presence suggested premeditation. This was not an impulsive crime, but a carefully planned and sustained operation. Against another wall, investigators found a handmade calendar system. A large piece of plywood had been marked with a grid, with X marks filling numerous squares. The calendar appeared to track days, though many sections had been crossed out or marked over, making exact timeline reconstruction difficult. Next to the calendar were notebooks containing handwritten entries, logs of activities, supply needs, and cryptic notes that forensic document examiners would later analyze. Tools for maintaining the site were stored in a corner: a battery-powered drill, a hacksaw, assorted hand tools, and spare metal sheets and concrete patching compounds. These items showed this was an active site requiring ongoing maintenance and repair. The captor had been prepared for long-term operation. Perhaps most chilling was a small wooden box containing personal items clearly taken from victims. A woman's silver earring, later identified by Sarah Mitchell's family as one Sarah had worn the day she disappeared. A digital camera containing photographs, the same camera Sarah had been using on the hike. A man's watch matching the description of Evan's missing watch. These were trophies kept as reminders or perhaps as leverage over captives. The investigation revealed one more space, a partially collapsed side chamber, accessible through a narrow opening in the upper level. This space appeared to be a storage area, or perhaps an attempted expansion of the facility that was later abandoned. Here, investigators made their most heartbreaking discovery: human remains. The remains were skeletal, partially covered by a deteriorated tarp. The position suggested the body had been placed there rather than having died in that location. Forensic anthropologist Dr. Rebecca Lawson conducted the preliminary examination. Female, based on pelvic structure, Dr. Lawson reported quietly. Age approximately late 20s to early 30s. Height approximately 5 foot 4 inches. The remains show signs of perimortem trauma, evidence of injuries sustained at or near the time of death. She pointed to fractures in the ribs and a depression fracture on the skull. Clothing fragments still clung to the remains, synthetic outdoor gear, including pieces of a jacket. In the debris around the body, investigators found a driver's license, preserved inside a plastic holder. The photograph and name confirmed what everyone feared: Sarah Chen Mitchell. The preliminary estimate, based on decomposition state, skeletal weathering, and the degradation of the clothing and tarp, suggested Sarah had been deceased for approximately 4 to 5 years. This aligned with Evan's testimony that he had heard Sarah's voice through the wall for a period after their separation, then silence. The timeline suggested Sarah had died in late 2017 or early 2018. Over the course of 6 hours, the forensic team systematically documented and collected evidence from the site. The operation followed strict chain of custody protocols, with every item photographed in, placed before collection, catalogued with unique identifiers, and secured in evidence containers. Critical evidence collected included blood samples from multiple locations in the detention space, all confirmed through field testing to be human blood. Hair samples from the bedding and floor surfaces. DNA samples from drinking containers and food remnants. Tissue samples from the rope restraints where skin cells had been deposited through prolonged contact. Complete skeletal remains of Sarah Mitchell. The restraint system, metal rings, ropes, and associated hardware. Sarah's silver earring and camera. Evan's watch. Clothing fragments from both victims. The military surplus blankets and bedding materials. Food containers with potential purchase tracking information. The notebooks and calendar system. Tools and maintenance equipment. Soil samples from multiple locations for comparison to samples from Evan. Rust, scrapings from the metal surfaces. Water samples from standing puddles and the drainage system. Pollen samples from the upper chamber entrance. Fiber samples from all fabric materials. Thousands of photographs covering every surface and angle. Videographic documentation of the entry and exploration process. Detailed measurements and architectural diagrams of all 3 levels. 3D laser scanning of the entire structure for precise reconstruction. The evidence was overwhelming. Every detail Evan had described, despite his memory being fragmented by trauma, was confirmed. The space dimensions, the metal walls, the cold temperature, the restraints, the makeshift bed, all matched his testimony exactly. The forensic evidence collected from the site matched the trace evidence taken from his body. The presence of Sarah's remains explained his knowledge of her death, even though he never actually saw her body. But questions remained. Who built this prison? Who maintained it for 7 years? Who took Sarah and Evan Mitchell from a public hiking trail in broad daylight and brought them here? The evidence at the site provided clues, but the investigation was far from over. With the crime scene secured and initial evidence collected, the investigation shifted to identifying the perpetrator. The bunker site provided numerous investigative leads, But the most promising came from the pattern of access and logistics required to maintain such an operation. The ATV tracks discovered near the site became the first major lead. Tire impression analyst Marcus Bell photographed and cast the tracks, then compared them to databases of ATV tire patterns. The tread pattern matches a Carlisle AT489 tire, size 25 by 8 x 12, commonly used on mid-size utility ATVs, Bell reported. The wear pattern indicates these specific tires had been used for at least 2 to 3 years, with particular wear on the outer edges, suggesting frequent turning in rough terrain. This information was cross-referenced with ATV registration databases and local sales records. While not all ATVs are registered, particularly those
Used exclusively on private property, investigators compiled a list of owners within a 50-mile radius who owned vehicles compatible with these tires. The investigation expanded to examining wildlife monitoring cameras that had been deployed throughout the region for elk and deer population studies. The Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife maintained a network of these cameras, many positioned along logging roads and forest access routes. In a painstaking process, investigators reviewed thousands of dated images from cameras within 10 miles of the bunker site, searching for vehicles or individuals traveling toward that area. The timeline focused on the period from September 2015 through May 2022. The review yielded results. Multiple cameras had captured images of the same vehicle over the years. An older model Ford F-150 pickup truck, dark blue or green, with a utility rack mounted in the bed. The clearest images showed the truck was a 1990s model, likely 1995-1999, based on body style. The license plate was not legible in most images due to distance and image quality, but enhancement efforts revealed partial characters. _7K4_3. The frequency of sightings was telling. The truck appeared on cameras along a particular logging road approximately once every 2 to 3 weeks during spring, summer, and fall months, and less frequently during winter. This pattern suggested regular supply runs or maintenance visits to a remote location. The Oregon Department of Motor Vehicles database contained 847 registered Ford F-150 trucks from the 1995 to 1999 model years within a 100-mile radius of the site. Investigators applied filters. Dark blue or dark green in color, 243 vehicles. License plates matching the partial characters _7K4_3, 6 vehicles. Owners residing within practical travel distance to the bunker site, 4 vehicles. Of these 4, investigators conducted preliminary background checks and eliminated 2. One owner was a 72-year-old woman who had purchased the truck only in 2020, after most of the captivity period. Another owner had sold the truck in 2016 and moved to California. 2 names remained, David Richardson and Thomas Kellerman. David Richardson, age 51, lived in Chemult, Oregon, approximately 35 miles from the bunker site. He worked as a mechanic at a local automotive shop, maintained a relatively normal social profile, and had no criminal record beyond traffic violations. Investigators placed him on the watch list, but found little to connect him directly to the crime beyond vehicle type. Thomas Kellerman, age 48, presented a far more compelling profile. Kellerman lived alone in a remote property approximately 28 miles northeast of the bunker site, outside the small community of Crescent, Oregon. Public records showed he owned 40 acres of forested land, purchased in 2009. His employment history was sporadic. He had worked as an independent mechanic and handyman, but had no documented employment or tax filings since 2013. This meant either he was working under the table, or he had another source of income that didn't require legitimate employment. DMV records confirmed Kellerman owned a 1997 Ford F-150, dark blue, with license plate K7K483, a perfect match to the partial characters captured on wildlife cameras. More concerning were his skills and background. Military service records showed Kellerman had served in the U.S. Army from 1994 to 1998, with training in combat engineering and explosives. He received an other-than-honorable discharge in 1998 following disciplinary issues, though the specific details were sealed. He would have had knowledge of military bunker construction and could have been aware of abandoned military sites in the region.
Criminal background checks revealed a disturbing pattern. In 2003, Kellerman had been arrested for assault in Klamath Falls, but charges were dropped when the victim declined to testify. In 2007, a restraining order was filed against him by a former girlfriend who claimed he had exhibited controlling and threatening behavior, though the order expired after the standard 2 years and was not renewed. Psychological profile indicators emerged from interviews with former employers and acquaintances. Multiple people described Kellerman as a loner who avoided social interaction, was prone to sudden anger, and expressed distrust of government and society. A former co-worker remembered, "Tom was smart, really good with his hands, could fix anything. But he was off. He'd go on these rants about how society was collapsing, how people needed to be tougher, how weakness should be punished. It made people uncomfortable." Local businesses provided additional evidence. A clerk at the Cascade Supply hardware store in Chemult, Angela Morrison, remembered Kellerman as a regular but unusual customer. "He'd come in every few weeks, always bought in bulk," Morrison told investigators. "Lots of nylon rope, duct tape, padlocks, metal cables, camping supplies too, propane tanks, canned food, big water containers. I remember thinking it was odd because it was always the same stuff, over and over, like he was stocking a bunker or something." When shown a photo array, Morrison positively identified Kellerman. "That's definitely him. I remember because he always paid cash, never used a card. And he wasn't friendly, didn't make small talk, just wanted his stuff and to leave." The Chemult grocery store provided similar evidence. Manager Robert Chen, no relation to Sarah Mitchell's family, recalled, "This guy, if it's who I'm thinking of, came in regularly, bought huge amounts of non-perishable food. Beans, rice, canned vegetables, nothing fresh. He'd fill a cart, pay cash, and leave. We joked about him being a prepper, one of those survivalist types." Additional witnesses emerged. A logging company foreman remembered seeing Kellerman's truck on logging roads in the area of the bunker, though at the time he thought nothing of it. Many locals used those roads for hunting or accessing remote property. A gas station attendant in Crescent remembered Kellerman buying fuel for both his truck and for portable containers, suggesting he was fueling equipment like an ATV or generator at a remote location. The FBI's Behavioral Analysis Unit synthesized all available information into a comprehensive suspect profile. Male, late 40s, military background with relevant technical skills, socially isolated, minimal family connections, history of controlling behavior and violence indicators, financial independence or minimal needs, allowing off-grid lifestyle, methodical and organized in planning, capable of long-term sustained operations, strong physical capabilities for construction and victim control, low empathy and willingness to cause suffering, pattern of dehumanizing others and expressing contempt for perceived weakness, living in remote location with privacy for planning and preparation, knowledge of abandoned military structures in the region, regular travel to isolated areas for maintenance and supply, use of cash to avoid financial tracking, minimal digital footprint or surveillance exposure. Every element of this profile matched Thomas Kellerman. On May 30th, 2022, FBI Special Agent in Charge Robert Hammond formally designated Thomas Kellerman as the primary suspect in the kidnapping and captivity of Evan and Sarah Mitchell and in the murder of Sarah Mitchell. An arrest warrant was prepared, charging Kellerman with kidnapping, false imprisonment, murder in the first degree, and multiple related felonies. Surveillance teams were dispatched to Kellerman's property to locate and monitor him, while tactical teams prepared for arrest. The surveillance revealed that Kellerman's truck was not at the property and there were no signs of recent activity. Neighbors reported not having seen him in approximately 3 weeks, a timeline that aligned with Evan Mitchell's escape and discovery. An urgent multi-state alert was issued. Had Kellerman learned of Evan's discovery and fled? Was he still in the region, or had he escaped to parts unknown? The investigation entered a critical new phase, the manhunt for Thomas Kellerman. While search teams worked to locate Thomas Kellerman, FBI behavioral analysts constructed a comprehensive profile of his methodology and motivations, both to understand the crimes committed and to predict his possible actions as a fugitive. FBI behavioral analyst Dr. Marcus Chen led the profile development. Kellerman exhibits characteristics consistent with what we classify as a predatory captor with sadistic and control-oriented motivations, Dr. Chen explained in his report. Unlike opportunistic offenders, Kellerman demonstrated extensive premeditation, site preparation, and systematic operations over years. Victim selection appeared both opportunistic and calculated. Sarah and Evan Mitchell were targeted not because Kellerman knew them personally, but because they represented an ideal victim profile. Young, healthy adults visiting a remote location, away from their support network, following predictable patterns on public trails. Kellerman likely conducted surveillance of potential victims over time, Dr. Chen theorized. The selection of a couple rather than a solo hiker suggests confidence in his ability to control multiple victims simultaneously, which implies either prior experience or extensive planning. The attack itself demonstrated tactical proficiency. Based on Evan's fragmented memories and the lack of any witness reports of disturbance, Kellerman likely used a combination of surprise, violence, and possibly chemical incapacitation, Dr. Chen explained. The rapid subduing of two healthy adults with no alarm raised suggests military-style assault training, which aligns with Kellerman's service record. Transport to the bunker, located several miles from the hiking trail, would have required methodical execution. Investigators theorized Kellerman used his ATV, which could navigate off-trail terrain, to move unconscious or restrained victims to his truck at a remote logging road, then drove them to the bunker site. The entire operation likely took 2 to 3 hours, all conducted during daylight hours with minimal risk of detection due to the remote location and low visitor traffic that day. Kellerman's maintenance of the captivity operation over 7 years required consistent routines and supply chains. Analysis of purchasing patterns, site evidence, and the condition of victims allowed investigators to reconstruct his operational methodology. Supply runs occurred approximately every 2 to 3 weeks during most of the year,